We've had some amazing conversations throughout the first half of the year. A Black Hawk Down survivor, a local athlete that learned many lessons from Tom Izzo, two leaders in local businesses that are doing great things and how they see people differently, and six men building brotherhood all in one discussion. Today, we're pulling the best lessons from the best discussions of the first half of the year, and we're going to package into one group of discussions all for you. You know, I think it's so important to recognize that how we show up at home, but also at work, impacts our team members that are fathers, mothers, husbands, wives that evening.
Yep.
And you know, back in my corporate days, there was someone that was not showing up in a good way every single day, and I saw very directly what a toxic leader can do to people's home life. So I'm not going to talk about that a lot, other than shifting it to we're also human, so we all fall, right? We all have those days, for sure. But it's so important to check ourselves, and if we're overly stressed, the team's going to be overly stressed, right? If we're having all these challenges, the team's going to have that, and you grow from that stuff. But we have to build the self-awareness and check ourselves and say, okay, am I, in the face of adversity, what is my attitude when this is happening? What is my mindset when this is happening? Because the situation isn't going to be what defines the organization. How you react to the situation, how you live, how you approach things is what's going to define the mindset, the approach, the attitudes of the organization, which then ripples to the home life. If there's a major stressful situation at work, and you're just hair on fire if you have it, but hair on fire, going crazy, right? I had it maybe one more time yet, Brian, one more bald joke. But if that's how you react, that's how the team's going to react, and that's how they're going to go home at night. So I think just looking internally is so important. You've said this several times, and I think it's connected to how you can grow to multiple locations, but people in the right seats, the right people on the bus, is that what has been the key to being able to scale and grow to 50 employees in multiple locations? And I think part of that is the humility as an owner, as a leader, whatever your role is, of knowing what are you good at and where do you have to get out of the way, right? And it seems like even with 5 partners, you guys have a lot of different diversity of skill sets, right? For sure, I'm sure you do. I don't know all those nuances, but inevitably you will have that. But that doesn't mean you guys claim you know it all and aren't trusting your team with things. So has that been, you think, the key to the ability to grow like you've grown, or has it been something else?
No, I think that's probably the number one factor, to be honest with you, in our growth is the people on our bus. You know, we talk a lot about protecting our bus and our staff and doing the right things for them. We've, in a group of 50, we hope that everybody that we bring on board works. One thing I can tell you in 25 years is not everybody that we bring on board works, and there have been situations where they've been good human beings. It just wasn't the right fit. Sometimes you have to identify that for the good of both. We've had situations where we thought someone was going to work out really, really well. It was toxic. We need to get them off that bus, because our biggest fear is those that we have leaned on the most, we've trusted, we've empowered, that we absolutely cannot do what we do without them if we let that bus get out of whack a little bit, or we let toxic people hang around just because they might be a very good salesperson, or they can do this or do that differently. Fundamentally, if they're not good human beings, and if they're not going to play well with others, they just don't fit in our group. And I think being able to scale is because we have a lot of people that just genuinely enjoy being with one another. It's not always perfect, but at the end of the day, we have 50 people that genuinely, in my opinion, do care about one another, and they support one another. And I think a lot of times when you have a lot of really good, talented people that see each other in that light, they don't want to be the dead weight on the group, right? Like, they want to be better. And I feel like, it isn't one of those things where it has to come from the top down, but they see it in each other and staff-wise that, look, this person's exceptional. Well, I want to be exceptional. And I think that's the value of protecting what you have staff-wise, is because that consequential wins just continue to roll and roll and roll. And so as we get younger people on board and they see this, they see the success they've had, it's a win.
The Somalis had started to use some counter tactics that essentially, it's not unusual for any adversary to evolve. In fact, it's almost always the case. And whether you're playing a game or you're in the military or in business, if you stay static and continue to repeat the same thing, your adversary is going to gain an advantage over you. So we were not doing exactly the same thing, but there's only so many ways you can put people on the ground on a target in a city. So they started to make some observations and change their tactics. And the biggest change was they started to fire these rocket propelled grenades, which is a primitive weapon. It's not very sophisticated, but that also makes it hard to defeat because it doesn't emit a signal. We can't jam it. It's not, it's essential. It is a grenade on the end of a rocket. You point and shoot, and there's no indication that it's coming. So against helicopters that are in the target area, it's highly effective. And on that day, as a result of their change of tactics, they fired, their estimates are 125 RPGs at us on the whole mission, not just me. And so that resulted in some success. In fact, 5 aircraft were shot down, and mine happened to be the one that was most isolated and the only one that was completely overrun by the enemy. And in the process, everyone but me was killed in the firefight. Adid wanted a prisoner. And so someone on the ground at what we call Crash Site 2, which is mine, recognized that I was still alive and got the crowd under control and captured me. So
first of all, there's a lot there, and we'll come back, I think, to some of the leadership lessons that you talked about. So I saw you recently speak at an event, and you talked about that. But I want to take us to Crash Site 2 a little bit, and the circumstances, the heroes that came in as well to try to save lives. Just talk us through, to the best you can, not just what was happening there, but I want to kind of talk through the different phases of this and your mindset. And in your mindset, in this moment, the chopper goes down and, just the firefight, the Somalis surrounding you. Just trying to put anyone trying to put themselves in this situation, it's really just incomprehensible. But what are you thinking during this time?
When you fly, even in combat, you have to have this, I don't want to call it, I don't want to describe it incorrectly here, but there's a phrase we use, big sky, little bullet, meaning, that we're not invincible, but it's highly unlikely that we are going to be hit because it's just hard to hit a helicopter on the move. So in terms of our, my mindset going in, I don't think there's very much of a chance that I will be shot down. And I think that's true of most pilots. If you're worried about being shot down, then you're probably not in the right mindset to execute this kind of a mission. You have to have the confidence that you're going to be able to pull this off and, get out of there. But when the RPG hit the aircraft, it blew the tail rotor off, not instantaneously, but within a few seconds. And that is a horrible situation in a Black Hawk. A Black Hawk is what we call a single rotor helicopter. It has, one main rotor and a tail rotor. And the tail rotor keeps the aircraft from spinning. It's sort of like a tail on an airplane that keeps it pointed forward and more so in a helicopter because you have tremendous torque being created by the rotation of the rotor blades and the engine, the drive that's coming from the engines. So when the tail rotor goes at low speed and low altitude, there's not really too many situations that are worse than that. And because you can't dive out, you can't get the spin under control without shutting the engines off, which is obviously horrible. It seems like it would make it even worse, but it stops the spin and then you fall from the sky. So we did stop the spin. I was flying. And again, you're just doing what you've been trained to do. And that's why training is so important. Whether it's in commercial aviation or military aviation or any high, demand task like that, the more muscle memory you can build up, the better, because things are happening so quickly. You don't have a lot of time. But it was obvious to both myself and my co-pilot, Ray Frank, that, we had lost the tail rotor. In fact, I said it. I made a radio broadcast saying, we've lost the tail rotor. We're going in hard, because we were going in hard. I mean, we're falling out of the sky. And, there's this thing called auto rotation, if there's anyone out there that knows anything about helicopters. But at low speed, and especially a dual engine helicopter like a Black Hawk, doesn't auto rotate very well. And, we were not in a profile where we could initiate a true auto rotation. So we hit the ground really, really, really hard. I don't remember hitting the ground. And again, I don't know if that's typical of a high impact, crash. But I have no memory of it whatsoever. I remember spinning, but that's it. And then, again, these aircraft are designed with safety features just like, the cars of today, right? Crumple zones and all that. We have crash attenuation, it's called, in the landing gear and in the seats. So it absorbs a lot of the G forces, but we still hit so hard that my femur broke in half on the edge of the seat. My vertebrae were crushed. And one thing I didn't know, a compression fracture is the bones are getting smashed, not the discs. The discs actually are displaced and the bones hit each other. And it was fairly young. I was 32. So when your discs are soft like that, they will displace and then they'll come back. But in the meantime, the bones are crushed. So, these are really severe injuries. I was knocked out. Ray, similar injuries, although he didn't have a femur fracture, lower leg fracture. But he was able to get out of the aircraft. I was not. It's hard to sort of contort yourself to get around the flight controls, even when you're healthy. So with a broken femur and a broken back, there's no way. So I just decided I would fight it out from the seat. I had a weapon in the cockpit and I moved some debris out of the way so I could see. And we think that might be what, the two Delta Force commandos who were on board, they were the last operators, we call them operators, soldiers on an aircraft. And they flew over my crash site and they saw movement on the ground. They made a request to be put in. And, think about it. This is the moment to me that you have to imagine what would you do if you were them, right? We know each other. We're not close friends, but we know each other. And you see survivors at a crash site that is surrounded and about to be overrun by literally hundreds of enemy. Who has the courage to say, I want to go in. You're not asking me to go in. I'm asking you to let me go in. And they're denied initially. And then ultimately there's a discussion between them and the leadership. And finally the leadership agrees that the only way we're going to potentially survive is for Randy Shugart and Gary Gordon to come into the crash site. And so they're given permission. They're dropped off. First time I see them, during the battle is standing next to my cockpit. And I thought at that point, there's a sense of relief. This is a rescue force, right? But I didn't realize there were only the two of them, and it would take 8 hours before another American would get to our crash site. So we were overrun in probably 15 minutes, and everyone but me was killed.
I think my end goal is obviously to get to heaven, which I know a lot of these guys' goals are.
Which the reason it's everyone's goal is because you've thought about it and gained clarity of that through the course of this group. Maybe you had that clarity, but my first response is, everyone has that, like you all have that clarity. Yeah, is the first thing. Clarity of where you're going and what you want to be doing, like where you want to go is an important first step in anything.
Yeah. And then to build on that, Ed Milet says this in his podcast all the time too, but he he thinks at the end of his life, God is going to show you the person that he created you to be. And are you going to be that person? Are you going to be that identical twin? Or are you going to be a different person?
Yeah, are you going to not recognize that person that you could have been?
So,
and that goes back to the regret of inaction, right? Did I not become who I can be, really, is the ultimate regret.
Yeah, and I think it's just a never-ending cycle of wanting to continuously get better because you don't know who that person is, So, and I think that's what...
There's a curiosity around that, right? There's a curiosity of what else can I learn, but also who can I become? Like what, you guys are, again, if you guys keep doing this, you have no perspective as 5 years, 10 years, like who can you have a completely different mindset that you had 5 years ago and that you will have in 5 years ago, 5 years from now, especially because of this. What does a good accountability group member look like?
Discipline, I think, for men especially, discipline has been one of the most important ones for us, because as we talk about as a group, main things are our faith, our physical. How are we working out every day? We want to look strong and be strong mentally as well. So reading, and that takes a lot of discipline because, all these guys are busy, like everyone else in this world, but it takes discipline to create that 15 minutes in your schedule to read a book, or create that 45 minutes to an hour to get to throw around some weights and get that workout in. It just requires discipline for a lot of us, it's waking up 5:15 in the morning to get that exercise in because, our days are busy, and then after work, we got to go home and provide for the family. So discipline, I think, is probably, I don't want to say the most important one, but it definitely, I think as we practice the discipline and incorporate it in that to all the aspects, it's the most important one. Hard work, just showing up, consistency is a big one. I know, I'll just get into it here a little bit, but when we first started this group, just to be honest, we struggled with consistency a little bit. And we go on stretches where we're like, we weren't satisfied, and all of a sudden we weren't meeting every 2 weeks. So about a year ago, we just were like, this has got to change. So every 2 weeks now we have a meeting. If a guy can't make it, we don't schedule around it. We just show up every 2 weeks, whoever can make that. And that has been a big change, I think, for our group, because you get that consistency of showing up, but it also, you see it spread to consistent workouts, consistent reading our Bibles, consistent prayer time. So consistency is a huge one. For me too, like, I think part of the reason we wanted to start this group here is because all of us, we were trying, to be better. We were trying to work out more. We were trying to be better husbands. We were trying to be better sons, leaders, whatever it is. But we just you do it for a month or two and then you'd fall off, and then you'd get back on for a month or two or it'd fall off. So I think that's one of the main things with our group here, at least for me, has been that consistency of continuing to show up and know we're going to fail sometimes. But this group's important because we keep coming back and we keep showing up, and getting better. So I think that's what a lot of us were looking for when we started this group, was that accountability factor. So that after 1 to 2 months went by, we weren't having that fall off.
Yeah.
We have brothers here in this group that are going to pick us up, or they're going to call us out on something if we're not showing up.
The best form of leadership to me is leadership by example. So that starts, at home, in the household, and just your wives, your kids seeing the example you are in every area of life. What do you guys think the impact this is having beyond, if you want to talk about the impact it's had on you, but what has the impact been on, your families or others?
From a family perspective, that my wife would say, Tori, she comments quite a bit that the growth, Cameron kind of mentioned, the growth that she's seen in me and my faith has grown significantly over the past couple of years, starting with Exodus 90 and then continuing with this group and then jumping back into Exodus 90 again as we continued this group. And watching that into my kids, my oldest is 7, and watching as a 7-year-old boy, when you look over and you see that dad is reading the Bible, or dad is encouraging prayer time, or, you know, all of these different things, like they see that and they watch it. And so we kind of share that amongst our group here. Whenever we see those wins of our kids, like they're mimicking what we're doing. We don't even realize it.
What's more powerful than that?
It's
I mean, I got chills. I mean, I had the same experience a little bit when you start to see your kids be light years ahead of where you were at that age. At least that's the case for me, is pretty inspirational. If I'm an A in health and a B in family and a C in faith or whatever, but Nate is an A in a different area, B in different areas, like what's the result of that? You talked about that a little bit before we hit record, Cam. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, I think I have the opportunity to stand on a different on the outside of some of these guys on some of the topics. The big one is I don't have kids yet. We've got somebody with 4, we got somebody with 1, we got somebody with 2, 3, whatever, and we're all experiencing different phases. They're all experiencing different phases of that. So I get to sit on the outside and ask them questions. I get to watch people like Danny, who probably has brought in the largest faith aspect into this group, and push that amongst the rest of us through his leadership and parenting.
And real quick on that, because I just want to make sure the listeners understand that. You said pushed. Is it push, or is it? I am calling it. Or is it you? But you have to be ready. Like, how does it?
You have to be ready for it, but I think, again, like we've talked about, there's so many ups and downs and ebbs and flows in this cycle of what we're talking about doing.
Life.
In life, yeah. And especially when you start, putting it as a data sheet, when you're looking at it on an Excel spreadsheet, you can watch and see the ebbs and flows. We can get a hold of each other and be like, hey, like Daniel texts, he's like, hey, like what's going on? Like, you all right? Is everything good? And we usually do that like separately and reach out to each other if we see something that seems off. So there is, we don't push shame on each other. We don't do any of that stuff, but we do have to, there are moments where we have to push people or pull them into the things that they're not bringing to themselves, or, they're not bringing to the group and things like that. Like a big one for me right now is just getting 15 minutes of stretching in. Danny is pushing me and pulling me to get that done.
But is that everyone's goal? Or that's your goal?
That's one of my goals.
Which you committed to, so yeah. He's saying, hey, you said you're going to do it. Do it.
And we have so we've set kind of like accountability buddies within our group. So you kind of have the person that's above you in the chart is supposed to go through and color your chart every week. And they kind of question like, hey, why didn't something happen? Or, give you an applause if you do something done. We go back and forth. We question, but we also celebrate. Through the chats each week, we kind of talk about, hey, you did a great job on this. Hey, if we feel like we had a bad week, a lot of times we'll speak up and we'll be like, hey, we had a struggle. I struggled this week.
Yeah.
I had things come up and I just didn't get done what I needed to get done.
Yeah. And I think it's a really important point there that you brought up, because when we think accountability, we think, okay, these people are going to help me fix all the things that are wrong with me, or they're going to, just be heckling me to get things done. But when you truly start to form an accountability group that becomes a brotherhood, you're starting to get to celebrate each other's wins in a like a real way. Like, if someone had a kid, or, just accomplished a goal that they said they'd do for 90 days or whatever it might be, you have more wins because you get to celebrate the wins collectively together, which I think is maybe missed. It's missed because we're thinking this is a group that's going to tell me everything that I'm doing wrong, right? And that's not the case.
No, it's definitely something that, like, if you're questioning doing this because you're worried about feeling shame because you're not achieving things, like, that's something I encourage you to kind of like pull to the side. Like, you might feel shame on yourself right now because you're only looking and questioning what you're doing and what your actions are doing. You get yourself into a group of guys, even if it's 1 or if it's 6, you get into a group of guys who are all trying to fight the same battle. We all of us have had down weeks, but we don't apply shame. We ask questions. We see what's wrong. We ask for help. We change or adjust things. Our accountability chart is constantly moving because maybe we've completely felt like we've done something so well for so long, it can be removed and I can put something that I need to work on better now. Or there's things on there that are like just on there because they're dials which create
the rest of the day. So a lot of us have a morning routine structure, get ready the night before, something like that on our chart. And it lives on there for a long time because it's part of what allows us to achieve everything else on that.
Yeah.
So if you are worried about, feeling pressure of not having it perfect at the beginning, know that it's ever flowing. It's a working sheet. It's a working group. We're all working through things. But that's the cool thing about having this is because you don't feel like I feel less shameful.
Yeah, you might feel guilty because you didn't hit somebody. You're not feeling shame, which is important to understand the difference of those, right? And I think you're going into this and you might even be thinking, I don't want to ask this person or that person to do that because, man, they have everything together. You might have a little bit of imposter syndrome, like I don't belong in that room with that group of people. And you're going to realize quickly that you can just really build off of each other, and it's the collective that has an impact. What's the biggest change or impact that you guys have seen from this group of guys?
For me, I was a late addition to the group, so I joined probably back January, February time period, and kind of like these guys, I had kind of bits and pieces of the accountability group. Like I worked out in certain stretches, and then I'd go on a month or two lull, or I'd read a self-help book, and then I would, stop halfway through and I get busy with something else and, different things like that. So just that accountability factor of, oh crap, even though these guys aren't watching, they are watching, it's like this, we always talk about this in our head that we have this little B word in our head telling us not to do something like, you have
five brothers,
all these excuses for, it's Friday. You don't need to work out today. It's fine. But I know I need to update that accountability chart. I know somebody's watching. So just things like that. From a faith perspective, prior to joining the group, I think once a year confession. That's just this one. Once a year confession maybe. And then you see, there for a little bit, we had monthly goals where, could we have our weekly tasks that we want to try to get done. Then we try to implement like a monthly goal as well. So one of the monthly goals was monthly confession. So we did that. And I think I've been to confession like 8 times over the last year, like just trying
profoundly different than prior.
Yep. Adoration is another thing. Like it's always one of those things you hear about in church, and it's like, oh, I wonder what that is. And then see some of these guys going and like, gosh, they encourage us to go, and it's like, go give that a try. And again, try to implement that into my, faith journey as well. So just as there's constant things that we're just continually to build on. So,
but look at the impact in just 2 years and think about what that can be over 2 more years, 5 years, 10 years. Nate, tell me more about just your experience and the impact, and what, maybe even talk about that, and where do you see this going?
Yeah, impact is that the group's had. I think it's collective here that our self-confidence has risen. And if I can summarize it, winning is contagious, right? We've all had short wins over the last 2 years to where it's like, okay, if Danny's going to do something, well, why can't I do it, right? Or if Danny's going to, sorry, Dan, I'll just keep picking on you. Doc's going to do something, well, I'm going to do it better, right? And it's not out of I want to beat Doc down. I believe in myself. It's that self-confidence and understanding that now, if I put my mind to something, I know I can achieve it. And if I can't achieve it, I know I got help around me, right? So I think that's been really cool. And, a couple of these two in the middle, Doc and Danny, just ran half marathons, which is really cool. And it's contagious, right? I want to do one in August. And there's other examples throughout the group that...
Can you carry me?
Ask Dan, yeah. No, but I think it just boils down to self-confidence and just this group being contagious, that there's something there. And as far as future, it's a little uncertain. We've talked about where we want to go as a group, and we still need to decide what that looks like. But I know we're going to continue to do what we're doing and just continue to level up. So the future's bright for our group, that's for sure.
One of the very early, I have it here, if you're... it's in my top books, so it stays with me here at the office, and I look through it. But it's one of the top self-development books I've read. It really woke me up to what leadership is all about. I highly recommend it. But what is a dream manager?
So the dream manager is an absolutely incredible book. It was written it came out in 2007. And what I'm always so fascinated by is how it is still so true today as it was when Matthew originally wrote it. And the whole idea behind the Dream Manager is that your organization can only be the best version of itself to the extent that your people are becoming better versions of themselves. And in today's world, and this number has not changed in years, in decades, actually, disengagement, employees are 70% of the workforce is disengaged. Like, which is so sad because we spend so much time at work. And so people are disengaged at work. And the Dream Manager helps us discover that people are disengaged at work, not because they don't love the work potentially, but because they're also disengaged in their own life. And people are disengaged in their own life because they have stopped dreaming and no one is asking them about their dreams. And so you as a leader, if you run a company, if you lead a team, if you start asking your team members about their dreams, they're going to light up. They're going to become more engaged. If you not only start asking them, but then you support them in those dreams, you're going to see your people show up very differently. They're going to grow in ways that you couldn't imagine. And so the Dream Manager is a fable about a janitorial company that was dealing with engagement issues, and they implemented the Dream Manager program. So they essentially had a Dream Manager in the organization that served as the life coach for their people, starting to ask them about their dreams and then help them achieve those dreams. And all of a sudden, this organization, they started to see better communication. They started to see people were staying. They weren't leaving. The retention increased, engagement increased, and all because they felt like, oh wow, my leaders are treating me like an actual person, like a human being. They care about me as a person. And so that's what Dream Managers are. You come and get certified at Floyd to be a Dream Manager, and then you go back to your organization. You serve as the life coach for your people, and not only are they helping hold you accountable to the dreams you say you want to achieve, but you're also learning new ideas. So every month that you're meeting with your Dream Manager, you're talking about relationships or time and energy or different areas of life, personal, professional, your emotional, spiritual, all different areas of your life you're digging into. So you're learning new content as you're being supported in the dreams that you want to achieve.
Winning's fun when it's together. You know what I mean? So if you're part of a business, it's fun to see other people have success with you. I think that's what makes it a great culture and a great team. You know, Coach used to always preach for guys that wanted to play at the next level. If we're all winning, it opens up avenues for everyone. When we lose, there may be one or two guys that have avenues, but there are 3 or 10 get stuck having to work harder to find that avenue after. So when you win, it's fun to do it together. And that's what coming back home, even in East Lansing, that is the mentality. People are helping people and finding ways to win together.
Yep. Well, I can't imagine the other stories. So you didn't tell me though. So the first week he kind of set an example, but that was to everybody. But when did he get in your face and like spare me the exact word maybe, but
I would say one that comes to mind is sophomore year. It was the first game. It was my first career start. Miles Bridges was out with an injury, and Izzo's not the tallest human being. So usually when he gets mad, he puts his forehead right to your chest, or he grabs your jersey and he's right there and saying words that I'm not going to repeat. But with all that said, you go back to the relationship guy that he is. I mean, 3 months ago, 6 months ago, we'll say last September, he called me. He has no business calling me. I don't play basketball anymore. I go up to alumni events. But he called me asking me how I'm doing, what I'm up to, how's my kids. That's what separates him to this current culture is he cares about guys that have been in this program. He cares about guys coming back. And that's the culture at Michigan State. It's guys that come back. It's guys that create that relationship that continue to go back.